Defense mechanisms. A defense mechanism is an unconscious psychological mechanism that reduces anxiety arising from unacceptable or potentially harmful stimuli. Freud was one of the first proponents of this construct. Defense mechanism may result in healthy or unhealthy consequences depending on the circumstances and frequency with which the mechanism is used. In psychoanalytic theory, defense mechanisms are psychological strategies brought into play by the unconscious mind to manipulate, deny, or distort reality in order to defend against feelings of anxiety and unacceptable impulses and to maintain one's self-schema. These processes that manipulate, deny, or distort reality may include the following: repression, or the burying of a painful feeling or thought from one's awareness, even though it may resurface in a symbolic form. Identification, incorporating an object or thought into oneself. And rationalization, the justification of one's behavior and motivations by substituting good, acceptable reasons for the actual motivations. In psychoanalytic theory, repression is considered as the basis for the defense mechanism. Defense mechanisms are classified in three types: primitive, less primitive, and mature. The classification is a little bit simple, but we're gonna focus only in the first, in the what they call primitive defense mechanisms. But let's see, what are they? The first one is denial, and denial is the refusal to accept reality or fact, acting as if a painful event, thought, or feeling did not exist. It is considered one of the most primitive of defense mechanisms because it is characteristic of early childhood development. Many people use denial in their everyday lives to avoid dealing with painful feelings or areas of their life they don't wish to admit. For instance, a person who is a functioning alcoholic will often simply deny they have a drinking problem, pointing to how well they function in their job and relationship. Number two, regression. As we noticed before, regression is considered the core of all defense mechanisms. Regression is the revision to an earlier stage of development in the face of unacceptable thoughts or impulses. For an example, an adolescent who is overwhelmed with fear, anger, and growing sexual impulses might become clingy and start exhibiting early childhood behaviors he has long since overcome, such as bedwetting, for example. 3. Acting out. Acting out is performing an extreme behavior in order to express thoughts or feelings the person feels incapable of otherwise expressing. Instead of saying, "I'm angry with you," a person who acts out may instead throw a book at the person or punch a hole through a wall. Number 4, dissociation. Dissociation is when a person loses track of time and or person and instead finds another representation of their self in order to continue in the moment. A person who dissociates often loses track of time or themselves and their usual thought process and memories. People who have a history of any kind of childhood abuse often suffer from some form of dissociation. In extreme cases, dissociation can lead to a person believing they have multiple selves, multiple personality disorder. People who use dissociation often have a disconnected view of themselves in the world. Time and their own self-image may not flow continuously as it does for most people. In this matter, a person who dissociates can disconnect from the real world for a time and live in a different world that is not cluttered with thoughts, feelings, or memories that are unbearable. Compartmentalization. Compartmentalization is a lesser form of dissociation, wherein parts of oneself are separated from awareness of other parts, and behaving as if one had separate sets of values. 6. Projection. Projection is the misattribution of a person's undesired thoughts, feelings, or impulses onto a person and onto another person who does not have those thoughts, feelings, or impulses. Projection is used especially when the thoughts are considered unacceptable for the persons to express, or they feel completely ill at ease with having them. For example, a spouse must be angry at their significant other for not listening, when in fact it is the angry spouse who does not listen. Projection is often the result of a lack of insight and acknowledgement of one's own motivations and feelings. And number 7, reaction formation. Reaction formation is the converting of unwanted or dangerous thoughts, feelings, or impulses into their opposites. For instance, a woman who is very angry with her boss and would like to quit her job may instead be overly kind and generous towards her boss and express a desire to keep working there forever. She is incapable of expressing the negative emotion of anger and unhappiness with her job, and instead becomes overly kind to publicly demonstrate her lack of anger and unhappiness. So this idea of denial, that denial as a defense mechanism is created as a way of eliminating those thoughts that they are interfering with the normal behavior or normal mental health of the person. But in order to do that, they have to cover up. They have to not to see. They have to hide situations or information that it was. If they are bringing to the fore to consciousness, you're gonna create, or there is the belief from the person, they're gonna create disastrous feelings for her or for him, and so she or him prefers or he prefers to keep it at bay. So denial is comes from an unconscious mechanism, but also it can be consciously operated by the person. So denial is considered a primitive defense mechanism for at least 2 reasons. The first one is that it happens when you are very, very small, when you are in the first ages of your development, like 2-3 years old, or even less. So that, no, I didn't do it. No, I didn't know. It was not me. I didn't know. Did you break the glass? No, I didn't break the glass. So you want to avoid to be in trouble. So you deny, and obviously your parent probably, if he's good enough, gonna say, okay, don't worry about it. But he knows or she knows that it's you because there's nobody at home, or there is no cat, no dog. But you're gonna believe that you were able to get away with the situation. So that's one way of denial. But this denial also becomes a problem in the future because we are established all these defense mechanisms to protect ourselves from this abuse that we are receiving since we were children. So this denial also helps us to survive. And since it's a survival mechanism, like all of them, like all the rest of the defense mechanisms, some other theories they call helpers. So if this is the function that they fulfill, they are becoming a little bit, or more than a little bit, rigid. So, and since they are protecting something that happened in the past and you never overcame that situation because your self were crushed or diminished or twisted or by the effect of the narcissist, of the person who abused you, or the people who abuse you, and you are basically creating an attitude that in order to survive and live a life like without too much stress, or at least that you think it has not too much stress, you invent this kind of means of protection to let yourself live in a more or less normal way. You have to understand that denial happens and is primitive also because you don't have any other tool to overcome that kind of situation, that kind of abuse. So finally, in order not to make this video too long, I want to make the connection between denial and trust. The problem with denial is that you block the possibility of communication because you are not communicating the truth. You're communicating something that is not creating a lot of anxiety on you. But also, this denial is connected with trust issues, because once you do not trust someone, you want to try to create a narrative, discourse, speech where you can feel secure, you can feel protected, and you can create space, surrounding you that can keep you out of trouble, out of problems, safe. So, in the last video, I think we analyzed the concept of truth, and the concept of truth is when you cannot trust anybody. The problem is that you cannot also get any kind of help, but because how are you gonna trust anybody to help you, to make you feel better emotionally, if you, by definition, that person is not able to do it because, one, he cannot see or she cannot see you, and second, you think your value is very, very little, because once you have been abused, all the way inside of you has been shaken, and you, with this shaking, you are not able to know your real value, and you are also able to buy any cheap price that people are willing to pay for you. This is one of the main disastrous effects that a good thing in a moment like the denial becomes a great problem for acknowledging your situation and also to be able to overcome it, to cure it.